Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 386. Back after one episode week last week, and kind of a lot has happened since we last chatted. It was basically a quiet week as we expected, but there are a few things. First of all, baseball's second half got started over the weekend. What a weekend for the Crew against a decent Miami Marlins team. I know a lot of Cubs and Cardinals accounts on Twitter over the weekend were saying, oh boy, you swept the Marlins. Well, these aren't the 55-60 win Marlins. This is a team that coming into the series was the number 3 wild card, and coming out of the series, they are tied with the Cardinals and Pirates for that third and final wild card spot. They've had a pretty good year. Now, we'll see, I guess, how the rest of the year plays out, but the Brewers were able to rally all 3 games. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, came from behind in every single one of those games. Got the dramatic Wild Bill Walkoff on Sunday. We'll play you the radio call of it, which my wife and I listened to on our road trip back from the Twin Cities, and we'll play the Levering TV call of it. But what a start. Cubs won their series at home against the Twins, but did not sweep Minnesota, so you pick up a game, 6-game lead in the NL Central, and the homestand continues tonight. We've got a fun one tonight. Freddy Peralta makes his return to American Family Field to be on the mound for the Mets, a Mets team that is going to be selling, that has underachieved dramatically this year. Could Freddy just stay in Milwaukee? Could we just get him back? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Why don't you just tell me the name of the player that you want? Freddy Peralta might be a guy who's going to be on the block. They're not going to sign him to a long-term deal. We knew he was entering the final year of his deal. That's why the Brewers traded him before the season began. But now that things have backfired so bad on the Mets, it might be where Freddy's on the block. It probably will be that way. Could you get him back for a deep prospect and pay the rest of his contract? Maybe. Miz on the mound tonight for the Brewers. That should be a fun one at American Family Field. We're going to talk about the Bucks. Big day in Bucks history 5 years ago today. I can't believe every single vestige of that team that won the title this day in history 5 years ago, July 20th, 2021, they're all gone. Giannis had his introductory press conference in Miami. Bobby as well. I always forget that Bobby Portis was a part of that trade too. But that also happened on Friday, I believe, in Miami. We'll talk a little bit about that. The NBA is now investigating the Bucks for signing Gary Trent Jr., signing one of their own players back to that ridiculous that we talked about last Monday, 4 years, $64 million deal. The NBA is actually investigating the Bucks. That's how bad that contract is. I do want to talk a little Braden Burries, who wrapped up his summer league with a walk-off winner. Impressive run in California and Vegas for the 10th overall pick. And we will also hit a little bit on the World Cup, and I mean a little bit, and a little bit on the Open Championship as well. That wrapped up on Sunday. Major season's done already. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has the foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Welcome in on your Monday morning. Hope everybody out there had a good weekend, and it's been now a week since we last chatted, so hopefully things are going well for you. My wife and I spent the weekend in the Twin Cities, stayed in Minneapolis, went to a music festival in St. Paul, and we left on Thursday. I think we talked about this last Monday. Left on Thursday, went to La Crosse, stayed overnight there Thursday into Friday, so kind of a halfway point. Eau Claire probably would have been smarter, but La Crosse is where we went, and I had a good time. La Crosse is an underrated city in Wisconsin that has, you're right on the Mississippi River. There's a lot of fun brewery stuff down there. We got a great meal that Thursday night, and it's a fun town. I had not been there in a long, long time. I called some La Crosse Loggers baseball games right on the old Mississippi. And mosquitoes the size of your fist, my fist, that would come at you once dusk hit off of the Mississippi River. You basically got carried off by mosquitoes there. But it had been probably 20 years then since I'd been to La Crosse, so that was a lot of fun. We did a music festival over the weekend. It was a Christmas gift that I got my wife. She's a big Rob Thomas Matchbox 20 fan. We kind of grew up with that stuff, and they were headlining a rare concert appearance for Matchbox 20 and Rob Thomas. And they were headlining what is called the Minnesota Yacht Club Festival. I have to say, it was pretty well done. Now, it was scorching hot. We did not deal with the Canadian wildfire there. I thought we would. Driving to La Crosse on Thursday and driving across the state, am I right? There was a ton on Thursday. Just a crazy haze of Canadian wildfire smoke.
How much postage does it take to send a letter to Canada?
Who's it going to?
Canada. It says, Dear Canada, you.
Forget about that Ron Swanson clip. Now, I know I should preface that by saying I understand that this is a dangerous time in that area of Canada, and there are people battling those fires and property is lost. But this just, my wife and I were kind of laughing about remembering this Ron Swanson clip as we were driving through that wildfire smoke.
How much postage does it take to send a letter to Canada?
Who's it going to?
Canada. It says, Dear Canada, you.
So anyway, we drove through that, and then we did the festival on Saturday all day. I have not been to, and I was a little concerned by 42-year-old body, which I know is not old, but I had not been to a festival like a full day where you're there the entire day and you're in the sun. Now, we did get VIP tickets. We're not going to sit with the plebeians. We're not going to sit with the unwashed. I can say this. I am not old, but I am well beyond the point in my life where I would be in GA for something like that. And my wife and I both, when we got into VIP, it was kind of a sectioned off area, and you had some different food options and a little air-conditioned bathrooms, just a little bit of nicety and not as many people. And you walked past the unwashed. You walked past where they have GA sectioned off into VIP. And there were a ton of people. This is a popular festival. The first I'd ever heard of it was when I was trying to find something to get my wife for Christmas. And it popped into my head a few years ago. Matchbox 20 played at what they call the Bourbon and Beyond Festival, which is a festival I want to get to. It's a 4-day. And it's in Louisville, so you get to do you can tour the Louisville Slugger plant, and obviously tons of bourbon places you can go to there. And they get a tremendous 4-day lineup. I don't think I'd have 4 days in me, but they put together a star-studded lineup for the Bourbon and Beyond Festival. Matchbox 20 was there a few years ago, and we tried to go to it, but something backfired with the schedule, so we couldn't. So it kind of popped into my head around Christmas. I'll let you see if they're touring, and they are Minnesota, not that bad of a drive. So we got tickets for that, but when we walked past GA and you saw the sheer humanity, just nuts to butts, people on top of people, and they've been sweating and they're sunburned, and it's just been a long day. We looked over there and said, I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think I could do it that way, with just being elbow to elbow with a million people over the course of a 10-hour day. So we had the advantage of that, but I had not done that in a while, where you see an act and they play for an hour and then you get a little break and then they play another hour. And there were multiple stages that we could have gone to, but we just basically stayed in the VIP area and watched whatever was on stage. When they were done, you'd go and get some food and kind of lay down on the grass for a while and zone out. Then you'd go back for another hour. So we saw 4 bands. We saw Matt and Kim. We saw Lord Huron. We saw All-American Rejects. They were actually pretty good, I have to say. I hadn't really thought of the All-American Rejects in probably 25 years. They put on a pretty good show. And then the one we wanted to see was Matchbox 20. They were the headliner. And it was good. I thought it was a really well-organized festival. The last festival I've been to where you're just dying in the heat in the middle of summer on concrete or grass somewhere was Lollapalooza. I went with my sister in Chicago when it became a Chicago-only festival. And I did that when I was 23 or 24, and I was sore even after that. We did 2 full days. We were there at the beginning all the way until the end. I think Pearl Jam headlined that last night. They were really good. But that was, even in my early to mid-20s, that was exhausting. So I had not been in an environment like that where you're standing and walking around pretty much all day and just drinking in the sun, which pale, fair-skinned people are always really good with being out in the sun for 10 hours. That's always healthy for us. We just soak in the sun. We just soak it in and tan beautifully. That's not detrimental to our health at all. But I hadn't done that in a while. It was good. They were super well organized. I can't say enough about the amount of hydration stations. I think back to those Woodstock 99 documentaries. I think that was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. There were a bunch of those. Hulu had one. Netflix had one. And they went through the Woodstock 99, which basically ended up being in a gigantic mosh pit and just mud and blood and guts everywhere, really, honestly. And it was an unmitigated disaster in 1999. But a part of those documentaries, a part of the problem there was it was super hot, like it always is in summer, and they just didn't allow people to get water. There was one water station at Woodstock 99 where you could get free water, and then if you watch the documentaries, the vendors then started to realize how much of a precious commodity water was, and they were charging like $10 a bottle in 1999. That's like $100 a bottle now. $10 a bottle in 99, just price gouging people, and people couldn't pay for it. So that was the number one thing, I think, that led to heat exhaustion, anger, mosh pits, punching, fights, not enough restrooms. I mean, it was just the infrastructure was so bad. Honest to God, I feel like almost every festival since then has learned from that, rightfully, what a mess that was. And now make sure that there is free water everywhere and sunscreen stations and a million bathrooms. But they could not have had it better organized, honestly. It's right on the river. It's right on the Mississippi River. And you could buy yacht tickets where you could go sit on a yacht and watch it. So we stayed in the VIP area, but Matchbox 20, Rob Thomas, they put on a hell of a show. I do appreciate, as I think we've talked about concerts before, I am also getting to a point where if I love a concert, even after 95 minutes or 2 hours, even if I'm loving it, even if I'm having a great time and I'm enjoying all the music and they're playing all the hits I wanted to play, once you get to the 2-hour mark, I'm kind of thinking, boy, I'm having a great time, but I'd love to be home. I'd love to be in bed in the next half hour. So I did like the nature of it where it's just 60 minutes. Here's a band for 60, then a break. Here's a band for 60, and then the headliner, Matchbox 20, was on for an hour and a half. But it was a fun time. Couldn't recommend it enough. If you look at festivals like that, check out their lineup every year. I think we both agreed we'd go back. If it's a good band next year, maybe we'll do more days or we'll just stick to the one day. But if it's a good act, I would have no problem going back out there. We also did get to dip our toe into the water of doing a little bit of a road trip. Now, we fly pretty much everywhere for vacations in the last 10 years. Back in the day, trying to save a little money. I bought our first house when I was in my mid-20s. So trying to save money, we drove a lot of places early on in our relationship. But since, I would say, 2011, 2012, 95% of our vacations, unless they're a reasonable driving distance, like this weekend was, we'll fly. Because just you get out there faster, you get to enjoy your time more, you have more time to spend, you're not burning a day on the front or back end. And look, if you like road trips, you like road trips. But I think over the years we've decided we'd rather just get there quickly and maximize the amount of time we have there and not lose 30 hours driving. But we are going to do a road trip to national parks in the middle of August. And that's going to be a road trip. We're going to Mammoth Cave, the Smokies, and Congaree in South Carolina. We're going to break that up on the way out. But on the way home from Congaree National Park, I'm pretty sure we're just going to give her, and it's 15 hours coming back. We have not done a road trip like that, I would say, since it had to be 20 years ago, 19 years ago. The two longest we've ever done, we drove to New York, but we stopped a lot of ways. We went to a game at Jacobs Field. We went to a game at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Then we drove all the way up to Cooperstown in upstate New York, then down to Yankee and Shea Stadium at the time, and then back. I do think we did the back from Manhattan all the way home in my dad's minivan. We drove all the way back. Whatever that was, that had to be 13 or 14 hours. And then the longest I think we've ever done, our friends got married in Myrtle Beach many years ago, and we drove out there in one fell swoop and drove back in one fell swoop, and that was 16 hours each way. But beyond that, we don't do a lot of that stuff, and I know we're doing it this time around just because it's almost easier. There's no good place to fly into for the Smokies. That's the problem. Every airport, every major airport that has decent flights is still an hour and a half or 2 hours outside of the Smokies. So that's why we decided to drive, and then we can hit more things. And you're not renting a car. You're kind of on your own timeline. So this was a good little practice where we drove to La Crosse, then drove to the Twin Cities. But yesterday, we drove all the way back. We did the full 5 hours and 15 minutes or 5 hours and 20, which I know is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. A lot of people drive a lot further than that almost all the time. But that was just a good dip your toe into the water, kind of get back, get your sea legs under you a little bit, and just remember what it's like to drive that large chunk of time, because that's 16 or whatever it is, 15 hours back from Congaree in the middle of August. That's going to be our longest trip in a long, long time. But we had an excellent time. Twin Cities, as much as I hate Minnesota and the Gophers and the Vikings and all the teams out there, Twins, I guess I could take or leave. I did have a good time, I have to admit. We also had, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Steve. He knows over the years, my wife and I love to find the best donuts in every city we're in. That's kind of something we hunt for every place that we go. And he sent me a text. I must have mentioned in the podcast, he sent me a text before we left that said, when you're in Minnesota, go to Bogart's Donut Company. And we went there Sunday morning, kind of on our way out. It was maybe 8 minutes from our hotel, so we hit that right before we left. And I do remember my wife said, because it was west of our hotel. So we were staring down the barrel of a 5-hour and 10-minute drive, and then she said, well, where's the donut place Steve wants to go to? I said, it's about 5 miles west of here. It's like 10-minute drive west of us. But that's adding to, 10 minutes isn't that big of a deal, but you're adding to an already long day. She said, this better be good if we're going to be going 10 to 15 minutes out of our way that we're tacking on to this already long day of driving. But we got over there, and one bite, everybody knows the rules, one bite into a donut, she said, oh, Steve was right. Steve was right. It was so good. Bogart's Donut Company, Bogarts. It's a really small, they have a couple locations, but the one we went to was a very small spot, like no place to sit inside. You could sit on a couple of places outside. Very tiny facility. You're in, you're out, and they try to turn people over very quickly. Luckily, there wasn't a line when we got there, but my buddy told me to get the brown butter donut, and that's their signature. They do everything well, which we learned, but that's the signature, the brown butter donut. It's a classic glazed donut, but it's got this brown butter frosting on the top of it. Now, I knew that he was right, and I knew we were in for a good time when I went into the building, and they had some merch, some T-shirts and hats, but then they sold the brown butter glaze like in a jar. That's how you know. You know they've got something special there when they're selling offshoot parts of what their donut is. It's like if you go to a good barbecue spot and they're selling their own barbecue sauce. Oh, this place probably knows what they're doing if they're marketing and selling their own barbecue sauce. More often than not, you're going to end up with a good meal there. Not every time. But when I saw they were selling little jars, and I bought one, I'm not even sure I'm going to use it for. I might just get a spoon. I just eat this and drizzle it right into my mouth on the morning show. May start an OnlyFans account, just drizzling local podcast. Is there a niche market on OnlyFans for red-bearded, bald podcasters drizzling brown butter glaze into their mouth? Yeah, there's something for everybody, right? Maybe that is out there. I'll have to investigate that later. We'll get off the work Wi-Fi to investigate that one. But when I saw that's so good they're selling their own brown butter glaze, the donut glaze, I knew it was going to be good. And now I did panic. When we got in there, we were so hungry, we hadn't had breakfast yet. And I knew we were going to get the brown butter one. And they had maybe 7 or 8 donuts on display. So they asked, well, what can we do for you? And I was looking and, you're trying to picture, okay, do I want half a dozen? Do I want 4 donuts? What are the donuts we want? And all of a sudden I just blurted, we'll take one of everything. We'll take one of everything. And we got one of everything. I think we got 10 items total. And that was $57 for the donuts. And then the glaze was $15. So I ended up spending $75 at Bogart's Donut Company. But it was worth it. Now, we still have a handful left over. We'll see how good they are a day after. We waited on, we saved the cake donut or the old fashions, the ones that shouldn't get crusty too quickly or that are already crusty kind of on their own. So we did save a few, but that was great. A fantastic donut spot. I would put it, my favorite donut spot we've ever been to, maybe up until Sunday, was a place called Faro Donuts in St. Louis. If you ever go to a Cardinal Brewer Series, or you go to St. Louis for, why would you go there? The Arch, I guess, if you want to check that. That being a national park is insane to me. That's a peg we have in the pegboard. But we went to, 3 or 4 years ago, we went to a Brewer Series out there and then to visit the Arch so we could do that. We could scratch that off the national park list. That's insane that that's a national park. It's a monument, but I don't know if it's a national park. But anyway, we got Faro Donuts out there, and those were some of the best donuts. And born and raised in Sheboygan, Johnston's, Oostburg Bakery, West Side, Fuzzy the Baker. We are spoiled in Sheboygan County with heritage bakery places, donut places that have been around for 60, 70 years, that have been doing it forever, family, passed down generation to generation. We are spoiled in Sheboygan with how many really good local pizza places and really good local bakery places we have. And even by those standards that I grew up in, Faro Donuts in St. Louis were tremendous. That was my number one. We went to Denver last year, and I had an apple old-fashioned, and I forget the name of the donut spot now, but that might be my single favorite donut I've ever had. I think Bogart's is either, the brown butter donut's either going to be number 2. I haven't updated my power rankings yet. They're either going to be number 2, a spot above Faro Donuts, or they're going to be number 3 right below Faro Donuts, but it is going to be a top 3. That's a Mount Rushmore location for me, for all the different cities we've been to in terms of the best donuts. So shout out to him for directing us to Bogart's Donut Company. But we had a good time. Yeah, 5.5-hour drive back through the smoke again and getting back into town, I think, about 4 or 5 o'clock last night. So we'll see then how we do. I think it's mid-August we're going. I've got to work 4 full weeks, guys. I haven't worked 4 full weeks in a long time, all in a row. We are going from August 17th through the 22nd or 23rd, so we'll probably leave. So we'll be gone from the 15th to about the 22nd, Saturday to Saturday. We'll see how that 15-hour drive from Congaree goes. That's, 5.5 hours is a good, like I said, dip your toe into the water, but 15 is, they got to do this another time, and then I've got to do it another time after that. But we'll see how that goes in a couple of weeks or in a month. Appreciate you hanging out here on a Monday. So let's get going real quick with the World Cup. Where's my one last play on the super bad It's Soccer?
And we're down 2 points. Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Spain takes down Argentina 1-0. They score at minute 106. From what I heard, though, now we were driving back again and we were listening to the Brewer game, but I kind of had my eye on it when we got home. I think we could have probably watched the tail end of the match, but didn't. But from what I read and heard on podcast this morning, Spain essentially dominated it. So Messi denied back-to-back World Cups. He's 39. We'll see if he makes another World Cup. It is odd to me. How did he end up in the MLS at that point in his career? Because he's been in Miami now for 2 or 3 years, right? Or at least 2 years. And the MLS, it feels like over the years, it happened with David Beckham famously in 07 or 08 when he was at the very end of his professional career and the Galaxy signed him. It was this big deal. David Beckham's playing in the MLS. It's going to legitimize the MLS. But it always feels like international superstar soccer players, when they're at the tail end of their career, they can cash in one more ticket. Maybe when some of the bigger leagues are sort of done with them or they're not going to offer them the same amount of money, they can come to the MLS and make a huge amount of money on a 2-year or 3-year deal. It's insane to me that Messi, who just basically dominated the World Cup, even though Argentina didn't win, he was the number one guy and the number one gif, too. Did you see the gif where, I forget what he was reacting to, but it's been all over social media. The gif where he kind of looks like Robert De Niro. And he's kind of giving you the, okay. Like, I think someone was talking trash to him, and he took a second and then thought, okay, fine. All right, you're going to talk trash to the king? Okay, fine. And he kind of had, like I said, that Robert De Niro look to him. Somebody tweeted out a gif of that, and it said, wives when they see their husbands relaxing and doing nothing. Okay. I got some things we can come up with here. And that has gone super viral, like 50 million views. The guy who tweeted out last night that may legitimately pay off his mortgage. That one tweet. The amount of money the amount of Elon bucks he'll get back for the amount of views that tweet has. So Messi just dominates the World Cup. Number one topic, scoring 1 million goals, and couldn't get the job done yesterday, but whatever. He's the number one guy, it felt like, throughout the entire tournament. And it's just crazy to me that he's in the MLS. He is playing in Miami. Him and Giannis in Miami. So that wrapped up on Sunday with Spain getting their first World Cup championships in 2010. And then I want to play you the tail end of the Open Championship. I know I have been so bad, and we just talked about this with the U.S. Open. I have been so bad on this podcast this year. I have not been this bad traditionally, but, we pick a winner for every major. I bet on a guy for every major championship. And I have been so bad this year with remembering that I have to make that pick on Monday because we're a Monday-Friday podcast, and by the time you get to Friday, we're already around, and in some cases, like the Open Championship, where they're starting at 3 a.m., you're a round and a half into it by the time we record the Friday podcast, and I want to make sure we get the pick out there, so just in case that pick wins, then somebody doesn't come back and say, you picked the winner 70 hours or 48 hours after the tournament started. How convenient for you. So for those reasons, I want to make sure I get the pick out there on Monday so we have the audio record of it where if that person wins, I can go back and say, look, it's time-stamped, it's published on this day at this time. I couldn't possibly have fixed this. Now, I had Shane Lowry. That's who I took on Thursday morning right before, as I got up, as I was in the bathroom at 3 o'clock in the morning that morning. And I think the first guy started at 3:45 a.m. I had Shane Lowry. Lowry won it in 2019. It's the only major championship. He's always kind of lurking. He's always, it feels like, in that top 10, top 15, top 20. His best finish in all the majors is at least top 5 and top 2 or 3 in a couple of the others. But he did win the Open Championship, the British Open. We won a war 250 years ago. I'm going to call it the British Open, okay? America. I'm not calling it the Open Championship, especially not with America 250 going on. This is the British Open. So I had Lowry, won it in 2019. He was kind of on the periphery. I think he finished the tournament at 2 or 3 under, but he was sort of, one of those where, God, if he could just get a couple birdies in a row, we might have a puncher's chance on Sunday, but that never came to be. So Ryan Fox, who I've never heard of in my life, we turn on the Open Championship Saturday morning when we get up, and he had already finished his round, and I saw Fox near the top of the leaderboard at whatever it was, 6 or 7 under at that time on Saturday morning. And I thought, I've never heard of Fox before. And then I looked to the right, and his round is done. He shot a 62. A 62? How'd he do that? I've never heard of this dude before. But that got him into it on Sunday, and then he was in a battle with Cam Young and Sam Burns, and Scotty Scheffler kind of got his way in there, and Tommy Fleetwood was in the mix as well at 7 under. So it ends up where Cam Young and Fox are tied at 9 under going into the final hole, where Fox is playing the final hole. Young was already in the clubhouse. He shot a 64, so they're both at 9 under, final hole of the day. And Fox absolutely nails an approach shot and then hammers home a putt of pretty decent length given the circumstances.
Picked his tee up, and it was 4 yards.
Now, you're going to hear them talking on this broadcast. It is crazy the speed that Ryan Fox played with. You would think in a situation where a guy's 39 years old, he's chasing down his first major, he would take his time, take a breath. All right, Ryan, let's take a breath here. Let's take a cleansing breath, a yoga breath, and not rush things. But he is clearly somebody who thrives on just going, sticking to the routine, sticking to his speed, not overthinking things. So it was funny on that final hole. It really felt like he was rushing, but that's just sort of his pace, and he didn't compromise that for as big as the moment was.
From the right bunker. Not wasting any time. Guys still walking off the green in the back left.
Yeah.
Up into the wind. Just left of it. Good line.
Is it ever? Fox with an incredible look to win it.
Birdie to win the Open.
This is not a short putt, and he does it. He gives it one practice swing, and then he just goes.
Done it! Ryan Fox has done it! With a birdie at the last. New Zealand has another major champion.
I mean, you miss that, you lip it out, you're going to a playoff, and who knows what happens. So Ryan Fox, back page of the New York Post. What does the Fox say? Open Championship, claret jug. So he wins it at 10 under. I have no idea what the odds. I think Lowry was almost plus 2,000 if he would have won. I would guess Andrew Fox, because when you go through those odds for a golf tournament like that, you know, the favorite, Scotty Scheffler, most of the time is plus 500 or 600. The next guy's plus 800. The next guy's plus 1,100. And then you get a bunch of guys at like 15, 18, 2,000. And then when you get to the bottom part of all of the guys that you can bet on for a golf tournament, almost all of them are like 50,000 to 1. I mean, just maybe not that bad, but 5,000 to 1 probably. Or maybe even 10,000 to 1. And it's just a list of like 30 guys that are all going to be there. They all have their PGA Tour card, but they don't really, in theory, have a chance to win. I cannot imagine if you bet on Ryan Fox on Thursday before the first round. Now, maybe you hop in on him after the 62 and you get him at plus 200 or plus 300 or plus 400, whatever he was going into Sunday. But if you had Ryan Fox, which I can only assume were Ryan Fox's family and friends, if you had him before the tournament, you might be able to retire if you put $200 or $300 down on that. I mean, that might be a 6-figure payout. They're close to an upper 5-figure payout. So Ryan Fox is the Open Championship winner. The other controversy over the weekend revolved around Bryson DeChambeau. Was that it must have been on Friday, right? Where he hit one into the fescue. He hit one into the long grass. And as he was approaching his shot to hit it out of there, he just happened to accidentally step on the grass right behind the ball where his backswing would be, where maybe his club would get tangled up in some of that fescue. And he claimed it was an accident, and then the rules committee came out there and they reviewed the tape and they held up play, and they end up docking him 2 strokes. And then DeChambeau, who is a showman, whether you like him or you don't like him, he's got a little bit of that WWE wrestler charisma to him. And when something like that comes up, he's not going to just take it in stride. He's going to get the crowd fired up, and he's going to jaw a little bit. And at some point, somebody had a video replay of him talking to the rules expert who was telling him, we're going to dock you 2 strokes, a 2-stroke penalty. It looks like DeChambeau kind of says, all right, fine, then I'm just not going to play tomorrow. I'm quitting the Open Championship, even though he was top 10 at that time. He was top 10 on the leaderboard at that time. It did kind of seem like that's what he said. He said, I'm just, whatever, fine, I'm going to go home. I'm going to take my ball and go home then. If you want to dock me 2 strokes for that? And then I didn't save the audio, but Rory had a lot to say about that. Now, Rory and DeChambeau do have kind of a WWE rivalry. Like, they don't like each other. And Rory said that when they asked Rory what he thought about what DeChambeau did and then holding up play, because as he was talking this over with the rules experts, everybody had to stop, and the whole tournament ground to a halt. It took like 10 minutes for them to work this out, which, as you know, if you golf even recreationally, you know that pace of play is a big deal, and you hate having to sit and wait for minutes. Now, expand that times a million when you're playing for $6 million and you're one of the best golfers in the world. They don't take kindly to that. So Rory had a few things to say. Even Scotty Scheffler. I don't think anybody likes Bryson DeChambeau. He's sort of got that Razor Ramon, like, say hello to the bad guy kind of vibe, like an NWO vibe to him a little bit. It always comes back to the NWO. That's what I found in life. In my adult life, I found most things come back to the NWO. But he does have that villain vibe to him that he kind of seems like he's steering into. But I thought all the commentary after the fact from Rory, from Scotty, everybody felt like, because they asked everybody, they asked every golfer who was in the mix on Saturday who had to deal with that delay how they felt about it. And I don't think any of them like DeChambeau. I don't think DeChambeau, he has not won a Masters. Has he won a Masters? Boy, what is DeChambeau? I think he has. Masters champion. Oh, he has not. Okay, I thought he had. What has he won? Oh, he has U.S. Open victories. That would be incredible. If he ever won a Masters, what would the reaction to him be at that Masters Champions dinner if they all just sort of hate the way he operates? So that was controversy this weekend as well at the Open Championship, as Ryan Fox, 39 years old, his first ever major championship. And look, maybe he wins more, maybe he doesn't, but it kind of has the feel of one that like 20 years down the road will be a trivia question, like who won the 154th Open Championship, the only major championship, the only PGA victory of his career? And the answer will be Ryan Fox. Has Ryan Fox won? Let's see if he's got any other tour wins. New Zealand professional golfer. Oh, he does. Okay, he has 3 tour wins. All right, John, shove it up your ass, buddy. Got 3 tour wins. He won, PGA Tour of Australia. I don't know. I don't know if I count that. He won the Open. Well, he's got top 25 finishes at the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the Open. He was 19th at the Open this last year in 2025. He won the PGA Tour of Australia, Player of the Year in Australia, the Charles Tour, he was a winner. Yeah, I don't know if I count a ton of this. But anyway, here we go. He won in 2025, he won the Myrtle Beach Classic, and then in 2025, he won the Canadian Open. Well, maybe he's starting to come on then. He finished top 20 at the U.S. Open that year, and he wins the Open Championship the next year, the British Open Championship the next year. Maybe he's starting to kind of bring his game all together here at 39 years old. But congrats to him. That was a fun part of the weekend as well. Now, where do we want to start here? Let's talk about the Brewers real quickly because we haven't talked about this yet. We did cash a substantial ticket. Remember on the last episode, we were heading into Home Run Derby night? And remember, as we were talking about the Derby, who did we put money on? At 6.5 to 1, baby! Jordan Walker, and what a performance he put on. I love the Shane McMahon when he does that little shadow boxing run out to the ring. Incredible theater. That's what DeChambeau has to do. So we had Walker and Schwarber. So you had the Philly crowd obviously supporting both Harper and Schwarber. So Schwarber moved on to the semifinals. That cost Bryce Harper his spot. And it ends up in Philadelphia where you have Schwarber of the Phillies and Jordan Walker in the championship round in the Home Run Derby. And Schwarber set the bar so high, he had 11 home runs in that championship round. They did find, I think, the swing format they found a winner with. They had that outs format for many, many years. And then they did the timed format. Now, this year they went to the swing format, where you get 20 swings in the first round, 15 swings in each subsequent round. So whatever swing, if you have a swing and it's a home run, that's a swing. If you swing and it's an out, that's a swing. And I think it's good. I think the problem they ran into with timing the Home Run Derby is when you put a clock on it, you just have this real tense, nervous energy because you can't savor the home runs. Home runs, like a good meal, they need to be savored. Those big moonshots, they need to be oohed and awed like they're fireworks. And when you had the timed format, it was a numbers game. So before the ball even landed, the guy pitching was already heaving another pitch in there. So you couldn't enjoy any of it because you were always trying to watch what was going on. So a timed Home Run Derby format, I guess, never really made sense in retrospect. I think the swing format was great. And then you got to that last swing. If you hit a home run on that last swing, you could just keep on going. As long as you keep hitting home runs, that last swing could last forever. And then whenever you have an out on that last swing, then you're done. So Jordan Walker used that. He was down 11-7, I think it was, and then he hit 5 straight with his last swing, or 4 straight with his last swing, and he took down the championship, and we cashed a plus 650 ticket on Jordan Walker. I couldn't believe it. Now, like major golf championships, we do put money on a Derby contestant every year. I don't know that I've ever been close, ultimately, to winning. I don't know that I've even ever had a guy in the championship round. So Walker got there, and then I figured with Kyle Schwarber playing in front of the hometown crowd, it kind of felt like, I probably don't have a good chance here. But then, he kind of stole the night, and that Philly crowd was super bummed. The Philly crowd did add to it. I know they take a lot of heat because they threw batteries at Santa Claus or whatever they did. But you throw batteries at Santa Claus one time, you never live it down. But they sort of made the night enjoyable because they were so into it. When it was Schwarber, they were cheering relentlessly. And then when it was anybody going up against Schwarber, they would just boo the whole time the guy was up there. And then if he had a swing that wasn't a home run, they cheered like he had hit a home run in Game 7. I think that atmosphere really added to it. For as scary as that Philly crowd can be, for those loathsome, offensive brutes in Philly, for as much as they can be like that, in moments like Monday at the Derby, they just kind of added to it because there was an extra electricity. There was a little spiciness in the crowd, which was actually good, I thought. And Jordan Walker talked about that after the Derby, too. So we were able to cash that ticket. All-Star Game was super boring, but that tip of the cap, that montage or that homage to the Sandlot with the fireworks and the kids on the bikes getting onto the field and playing catch with all the superstars, that was A+. With Ray Charles' version of America the Beautiful playing in the background and all the fireworks going off, that was an awesome moment in the All-Star Game on Tuesday. Now, let's talk about the Brewers over the weekend. As you would expect, I was a little bit detached because we were traveling and we were at this concert and driving on Thursday and driving a little bit on Friday and going out to dinner and seeing the things that we saw. By the way, also saw the old Hams plant with the Hams Bear in St. Paul. It's now called the St. Paul Brewery, and they make a lot of really good beers. Not that Hams isn't a good beer. I enjoy good Hams every once in a while. But they have a lot of really good brews over there, and they do wood fire pizzas. That was awesome. Good cocktail bar across the street, too. So we were doing a lot of the traveling stuff. Now, we were able to listen to Friday night's game. They were down 1-0. Who was starting on Friday? Drouin on Saturday. Oh, Logan Henderson, really solid. 5 innings of 1-run ball. But they were down 1-0. Joey Ortiz hit a home run to tie it. And then the night belonged to Garrett Mitchell. He had 2 incredible catches to save runs in the 9th inning and the top of the 10th inning. And then he's the guy who hits the walk-off with 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th inning. What a year this guy's putting together. He was 0 for on Sunday, but he had 2 hits on Friday, including the game winner. He had 3 hits on Saturday. Garrett Mitchell is hitting .394 with an OPS of 1,100 in the month of July. He's going to threaten to be player of the month in the NL for the month of July. And like I said, in addition to the offensive exploits, he had 2 incredible catches on Friday. So you get the 2-1 win. Craig Yoho was really good out of the bullpen. He wasn't as good on Saturday, but he's been trending in the right direction ever since Pat Murphy basically said he had no business being in baseball. Craig Yoho has gotten it together, and he has carved out what looks to be a pretty good niche. Now, they tried to get a little too much out of him on Saturday. He had the scoreless inning in the 10th inning and got the win on Friday. He had a scoreless inning on Saturday, and then because they had an 8-3 lead, they tried to get a little more out of him, and he gave up 3 runs. Then McGill had to come in. But overall, he's been really good. So you got the 2-1 win. And then on Saturday, Shane Drouin, again, solid, career-high, 9 strikeouts, 6 innings of 3-run ball. And the Brewers were down 3-1. They rally. What inning was it? See, this is the one where we were at the festival. Braden Shoemake, this guy they got from Houston, had a good game on Saturday. Couple of hits, had a big sac fly in that game. Contreras had an RBI double, but they took control in the 6th inning. Jackson Churio, go-ahead 2 RBI single. Mitchell, 2 RBI double. Yelly, 2 RBI double. And they end up taking an 8-3 lead. Then, it was Yoho giving up that 3-run home run to make it 8-6. McGill had to come on, but he nails it down for his 15th save. So again, on Saturday, you come back and you are able to win after being down early. 3-hit day from Mitchell, 2-hit day from that Shoemake kid. Overall, a pretty good day at the office offensively for the Brewers. 8 runs on 10 hits on Saturday. Now, Saturday was also the day that we got the Brandon Woodruff update, the injury update. And as expected, it was not good. Now, on Friday night, a lot of the Brewer beat reporters were talking about Woodruff. And I guess Pat Murphy must have said something post-game Friday. And he said Woodruff's going to have an injury update, but he would like to be the one to make the update. And at that time, they said Woody was going to do that on Sunday. He was going to meet with the media on Sunday And Murphy said on Friday night he wants to be the guy to deliver whatever news he has to deliver. But Murphy said the prognosis, negative. The prognosis was not good. So they tweet that out on Friday. McCalvey, all the beat reporters say Woodruff's going to address the media on Sunday afternoon before the game, and he's going to provide an update. At that point, when I'm reading that Friday night, and just based on the fact that we know the diagnosis is not good, and based on the fact that the reporters are saying, okay, we're going to allow Woodruff to deliver this news, and we're not going to break any news here that he wants to tell you, I thought when I went to sleep on Friday night, we were going to get a retirement announcement from Woody, and who could blame him? He has battled so hard to come back from so many different injuries, and yes, he's making a lot of money, and I know that's another side of the coin that a lot of Brewer fans were talking about on Friday and Saturday, and he ended up talking on Saturday. Not Sunday, but a lot of Brewer fans were saying, obviously we love Woodruff, but he did get paid. He's getting paid like $30 million this year, so not giving us a ton. But he came out then on Saturday and said that he is not going to retire, that he is going to have another shoulder surgery. And I did appreciate the way that Woody delivered the news because we were all expecting retirement. I wasn't the only one that was expecting that. I think anybody who logged on and then saw a video of Woody on Saturday, we all thought at 33 years old with the injury history and the reduced velocity and the fact that he made 20, 25, 30 with the buyout in there, I think it ends up being ultimately almost a $30 million contract this year. The fact that he's made a good chunk of money, it just felt like, okay, probably he's going to step away. His wife just had their second kid. That was announced 3 or 4 days ago. It just felt like we were headed to retirement. Maybe he coaches at some point, maybe sticks with the organization. But he came out on Saturday and said, look, this isn't a funeral. I know a lot of the reporters were asking, what is your legacy like in Milwaukee? And when you look back on this or look back on that, what he kind of said, hey, that's maybe a question for down the road. I'm going to have the surgery. It's the exact same surgery he had in 2023 that he had to announce that at the end of the year, and then he missed the playoffs that year. We didn't see him again until 2025. And it's the exact same thing. It's a capsule surgery. I guess I'll have to ask my wife about that one, but it's a shoulder capsule problem. And it's essentially the exact same thing he's going to have to go through again. So he said, look, this isn't a funeral. I'm still alive, made some money. I've got a great family. If I can come back and pitch, great. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But my intention is to have this surgery, to rehab it, and to come back and attempt to pitch again at the major league level. And I would think, given the fact that the Brewers know him well, they know his medical history well, he's worked with the trainers and the surgeons with the team, I would think if we get to a point in a year where he wants to start working again and rehabbing and maybe sign a minor league deal, or he's not going to get another multi-million-dollar deal, that's for sure. But if you want to have, in a year and 18 months, if it's kind of looking like he's got it again and you want to give him a veteran's minimum with a ton of incentives, maybe he ultimately does if he pitches again. It seems likely to me, given his knowledge of the organization and their knowledge of him, that it would start in Milwaukee and then just kind of see where it goes. Could he build himself back up? Can he get through a couple of starts in the minor leagues? But we would not see Woody again then. This is a full year like it was last time. So that takes you to the middle part of next year. So my guess is Woody, well, it might be a strike all year too. So this all might be a moot point. It might be a moot point. If there's no season in 2027, maybe he won't miss anything. But my guess would be, best case scenario is that at 35 years old, then Woody would try to make a return for the 2028 season. So it's going to be a long time. He's going to be with the team. He had his bobblehead day on Saturday. I think he's going to be with the team for the remainder of the year. And, for a very young team, a young pitching staff, a young bullpen, to be able to pick his brain will be very helpful. It'll probably be good for him to be around the team. But I would guess if we see him pitch again, we probably would not see him pitch again until spring training of 2028. But that was announced on Saturday before the game. You get the 8-6 win Saturday night. And a lot of the guys after the game on Saturday talked about how important that was for them to be able to get out there, get a win. Woodruff's bobblehead day with the news that came down. The other news that came down on Saturday, Sal Frelick is on the IL with a shoulder problem. So we're going to see a lot more of Luis God bless America. Luis Lara. I don't know, guys. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get it. Luis Lara. I think it ends up being somewhat fortunate that you called him up, then he's gotten his feet under him, because now without Frelick in right field, I would guess Luis Lara is going to be the guy. They called back Blake Perkins back up too. Terang also missed Saturday with a foot injury, but he was fine by Sunday. So there was a lot of injury stuff over the weekend. The Woody news was big Saturday, and Frelick hits the IL on Saturday as well. Then on Sunday, you get this last matchup of the year with Miami. And we're driving back. We're doing our 5-hour drive back from Minnesota at this point. We listened to the whole game. That actually does make the time go. We played a lot of music, obviously, but when you can listen to a 3-hour baseball game and it's right at the heart of the drive, that just, if you love the team and you love baseball, that just makes it go a lot quicker. So we're listening to the game, and the Brewers get down 1-0. Robert Gasser had a nice bounce back after he had that blow-up in Pittsburgh before the All-Star break. 5 innings of 1-run ball really looked good yesterday. And the 1 run was off the bat of Estuary Ruiz. Now, you will remember that Estuary Ruiz came to the Brewers in that ill-fated Josh Hader deal at the 2022 deadline. But then, was it a year later? It must have been a year later, that offseason, they flip Ruiz, and that's the guy that ends up bringing them catcher William Contreras. So there's a lot of moving parts from that Hader trade over the weekend with Miami, too. But Ruiz hits that solo shot, and that looked like it was going to hold up. The Brewers in the 6th inning had runners on 2nd and 3rd and nobody out, and I'm driving. We're in like hour 3.5 of the 5-hour drive. And we're both thinking, there's no way they don't get this game tied up. The heart of the order's up, Terang's up, 2nd and 3rd, nobody out. Just put one in the air, get this game tied up so then we can at least be in it here and be tied late in the game. And Terang struck out on a 10-pitch at-bat. It was a battle. And then just some bad luck after that. Andrew Vaughn hits a 100-mile-per-hour line drive, directly to the shortstop. And they double off Yelly at third base. Nothing Yelly could do. I mean, it was so quick. It wasn't even like Yelly was breaking for home. He was just taking his usual lead off of third base. But it was such a rocket back to short that he didn't have any time to think or to slide back in there. So you went from 2nd and 3rd, nobody out. 5 or whatever, 11 pitches later after the Terang at-bat, I think Vaughn lined out on his 1st or 2nd pitch of the at-bat, and just like that, you get nothing, and you're still down 1-0. So by the time they get to the 9th inning, as I'm driving, I'm kind of thinking, that was probably the inning, right? That was the inning to get it tied, at least, or get it to extras. You blew that one, and it just kind of feels like it's not going to be your day. But they get 2 on with nobody out in the 9th inning. First 2 guys reach base, Churrio single, and then who got hit by a pitch? I don't remember. Somebody got hit by a pitch. Was it Churrio that got hit by the pitch? Let's click on play-by-play here. Can we waste more time? It is. No, that's not what I want. I'm on the wrong day. We're going to delete all this. This whole thing is going to get deleted in post. Churrio hit a single. Then who was up after Churrio that got hit by a pitch? Oh, Terang walked. I'm thinking of the 6th inning, I think. So Churrio singles, Terang walks, and then Vaughn struck out. So you had first 2 on, nobody out. Then it's first 2 on with 1 down, and you're a ground ball from William Contreras, who, for as good as William Contreras can be and has been, he does hit into, as a catcher, a lot of inning-ending double plays. But he comes up then with 2 on and 1 down. He had the day off. He pinch hit in the 7th inning, so this was his 2nd at-bat of the day. And he cranks what ends up being a no-doubt walk-off 3-run shot. So here's what I'm going to play. I'm going to play you both calls, the TV call and the radio call. This was the radio call from Lane Grindle that my wife and I heard on our way back.
1-2 pitch. Is a fly ball. Deep center field. Marcy's back. Track. Wall. Bye. Baseball. Wild Bill. A 3-run shot. And the Brewers walk off the Marlins, and they break out the Brooms in Milwaukee.
That's an excellent call. And now here is the Jeff Levering TV call. There we go.
Fly ball left center. It is back. It is gone. Say goodnight, Wild Bill.
Also an excellent call. We are spoiled with some of the best. It's a great call. So you get all 3 games you rally, all 3 games they trailed, all 3 games they rally, and they sweep a Marlins team that is a playoff team, was coming into the weekend and still is coming out of the weekend. With the win, the Brewers are 62-37. So the Dodgers and Yankees last night played a doubleheader in New York, a rain makeup, and they split it. So right now, the Brewers are 62-37. Let me say again. The Brewers are 62-37. And the Dodgers now are a half game above the Brewers for the best record in baseball at 63-37. So they're even in the loss column. They played one more game. They won that game. But that's where we're at. Now, the Cubs won their series at home against Minnesota, but they lost a game. It wasn't a sweep. So you pick up a game in the division. Brewers now have a 6-game lead on the Cubs in the NL Central. And like we said, a half game behind the Dodgers now for the best record in baseball. Now, tonight, we start a 3-game set with the Mets. This is going to be a fun one tonight. You've got the Mets in town. They have grossly underachieved this year, given the payroll and all the moves they made and the trades and adding superstar players. They have been terrible. Now, they are coming off of, they did win a series in Philadelphia over the weekend, but they are 42-58. They are 16 games out in their division. And yeah, just a grossly underachieving team in whatever this is. David Stern's second or third year there. And they are 16 games under 500. Now, on the mound tonight, it is Jacob Mizorowski making his first start of the second half of the Brewers. He was originally scheduled to be on Tuesday. They moved him to Monday. And going against him for the New York Mets is former Brewer and top 5 Cy Young finisher last year, Freddy Peralta. Now, if you remember the movie Moneyball, is there a chance a Brewer team that feels like it probably needs some starting pitching? The news about Kyle Harrison this weekend was good, too. Kyle Harrison had an MRI with that elbow pain and the forearm tightness, and I guess the MRI came out totally clean. And he's fine, and he can be activated off of the IL on Friday. My guess is he pitches against the Rockies this weekend, so that was good news. So you are getting him back, and Drowan's been really good, and Henderson's been really good, and Miz is obviously a stud, and Sproat's kind of been coming on, kind of hit or miss. But you've got some options in the rotation, but it does kind of feel like the Brewers could be in the market for a starting pitcher. Is there a chance Matt Arnold would call his old friend, his mentor, David Stearns, and he would say this to him before the game tonight?
Mark, yeah. Listen, I don't want Rincon pitching against me tonight. Tell him to change his clothes and send him over. I got you the money. Yep. Great.
Is there a chance that happens before tonight? We don't want Freddy Peralta pitching against us. We want him to come home.
Mark, yeah. Listen, I don't want Rincon pitching against me tonight. Tell him to change his clothes and send him over. I got you the money. Yep. Great.
So they have not given Freddie a contract extension. Now, as we talked about in the offseason when the Brewers made this trade and sent Freddie to New York, the reason the Brewers did that is because Freddie was in the last year of his deal, coming off of a 17-win year last year, top 5 Cy Young finisher, and he's still only 29, I think, years old, or 28 years old, 29 years old. And in all likelihood, he was going to make $8 million this year, and then I would think still, even though he's had a not great year this year, I would think he's still going to be in line for a 4 or 5 year deal in the $75, $80, maybe $100 million range. And the Brewers were not going to pay him that for a variety of reasons. The Brewers just aren't in the business of paying pitchers nearing 30 years old major contracts, regardless of how good they've been in Milwaukee. They were never going to pay that. So the Brewers, like they often do when they've got a good player entering the final year of their deal, the Brewers always have to figure out, are we going to try to win one this year with this player and then lose this player for nothing or a draft pick or whatever? Or are we going to sell this player with a year left on his deal and try to bring some names back? And what they did was they traded Freddie to the Mets. They get Brandon Sproat back. They get Jet Williams back, who we haven't seen yet this year, but is a top prospect in the Brewers system and was a top prospect for the Mets for many years. So you got those two guys back, and they sent Freddie to New York. The reason the Mets wanted Freddie is because they thought they were going to be good. They thought they were going to compete for a division title. They thought they might be a World Series caliber team. So they're adding, in their minds, yeah, we're giving up Sproat, we're giving up Williams, but we're adding a 17-game winner and a guy who struck out 200 batters last year and finished top 5 in the Cy Young race. We're adding this guy to a pretty good rotation. We've got Juan Soto. We've got a bunch of blue-chip players, and they felt like they were going to have a competitive year. Well, they never gave Peralta the extension. At this point, I don't think they're going to be the team to do that. So they are going to be selling. They're 16 games under 500. So is there a chance for the Brewers, if you're looking for a starting pitcher, and I know they need a bullpen arm or two. I would love for them to find a power bat for third base, even though Joey Ortiz has really played well since he moved over to third and Cooper Pratt became the everyday shortstop. I still think I would prefer a veteran with pop that can hit for some average at third base, if you can find that. But the Brewers also might need a starting arm or two, and they know exactly what they get with Freddie. Now, look, Freddie this year is 5-8. He's got a 4.6 ERA. He's had a couple of really bad starts. He's had a couple of starts where he's given up 8, 9, 10 runs in a game, and his ERA, that's why the ERA is what it is. I mean, he's been okay beyond that. He has not been what he was last year. But at this point, if you're the Mets and you're going nowhere and you're not going to sign Peralta to the next contract, what would the Brewers have to offer? Could they get Freddy Peralta by paying the rest of his, $3 million left on his deal, and you send an A-ball prospect or a rookie ball prospect? You just send them a scratch-off ticket, essentially. You send that back to the Mets. Could Freddie be back with the Brewers? I know there's been a lot of conversation among Brewers fans about trying to go all in and trade for Tarek Skubal from the Tigers, who I don't even know if they're going to trade him. All of a sudden, the Tigers are kind of in the running in the AL Central. The AL Central has been so bad, and they're only 4 or 5 games under 500. They're only like 5 games back, so they may just hang on to him. But Brewer fans have said, what about a guy like Tarek Skubal? Well, if they don't get a guy like that, could you just bring Freddie home? Could you get Freddie? Could you get Freddie for like the 60th rated prospect in the system, and you pay off the remainder of whatever he has on his contract this year, and the Mets move on, and you bring in Freddie for the last half of this year, and then Freddie walks in free agency? Wouldn't that be something? If you get Williams and Sproat for Freddie, and then at the deadline you bring Freddie back, and he's a big part of a rotation that leads them back to the NLCS or to a World Series title, and then he goes away, that would be an incredible storyline. I don't think it's likely. I think it's very low on the percentage chance ranking, maybe a 3% chance or a 5% chance. But I think it will be a topic tonight on the radio broadcast, on the TV broadcast. Like, look, the Mets are going to be selling their veterans. They're going to be looking to burn some of this to the ground. If they're not going to the playoffs this year and they're not going to re-sign Freddie, if you offer him anything, you might be able to get Freddie back. But that'll be a fun part of tonight. Freddy Peralta, I'm sure, will get a warm reception as he returns to the American Family Field mound, and he should, heading into tonight, as he takes on the Miz, a 6:40 first pitch. Now, what are the rest of the matchups here? You've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with the Mets, then a day off, then you've got 3 with the last place Rockies this weekend. We've got Miz tonight, Sproat tomorrow, Henderson on Wednesday, and right now it is Drowan, Gasser, and Miz. And you might see Harrison activated for that Rocky series this coming weekend. But a great start. We also talked about on the Monday podcast last week, you got swept in Pittsburgh heading into the All-Star break. You get this really nice 9-game homestand to open the second half, and you start that with a sweep. You're feeling really good coming out of the sweep and the walk-off winner from Wild Bill on Sunday. Now, let's talk about the Bucks. I do want to play you a couple of clips. This day in history, July 20th, 2021. It's a part of the intro package for this year podcast. 5 years ago today, Game 6, Bucks in 6 at Fiserv Forum, and we end up getting this call.
Rebound. The Suns are not going to foul. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions. Let the celebration begin.
God, do we miss Ted Davis on those calls? Do you know what happened with Ted Davis? I kind of do. It was not great on his way out. Ted Davis was the play-by-play radio broadcaster. I probably shouldn't even say any of this, but what the hell? He was the guy for whatever. I forget when he joined it, 96, 97. He came from the Mavericks. In the mid to late 90s, he joined the Bucks radio broadcast. And his signature was always, it's in the bank and earning interest. This win is in the bank and earning interest. And he said that anytime he felt like that was his version of the Larry V. Dagger. But Ted Davis was so good. I do a lot of basketball play-by-play. The speed of the NBA game, he was able to have this presence on the air. There's a lot of action. And if you try to describe all of it, you're going to end up with a word salad. Your brain's going to be spinning. Now, part of the reason he was so good at it was that he did it for 30-plus years, so it kind of becomes muscle memory. But he was able to deliver an NBA broadcast, give you all of the essential information, leave out the stuff that didn't matter in a play, and he made it sound so relaxed and conversational. That is incredibly hard to do with a game that is going that fast. Hockey's like that, too, where it goes so fast. If you're doing a play-by-play on radio or TV and you're trying to tell the audience every single thing that's happening, it's impossible. I mean, you just get run over. You've got to find a way to find the essential plays, the essential parts of a play that the audience needs to know, who scored, how they scored. But you've got to be able to leave out some of the stuff, and he just was able to do that so beautifully. So there was a little bit of a falling out after that 2021 season. After this call, this is his last call.
The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions. Let the celebration begin.
I don't think that, from what I've heard, that the politics of one Ted Davis and coming off the pandemic year, there was a lot of that going on. And his politics and his stances, maybe on masks and, COVID and all that kind of stuff, I don't think it jived well with the ownership group. And yeah, that was kind of the end of Ted Davis. Now, I don't want to say a disparaging thing about a fellow broadcaster, so I won't. I think the gentleman they have now is perfectly fine at what he does. But we miss Ted Davis. As Bucs fans, we miss Ted Davis. But that was 5 years ago today, 2021. And like we talked about with this whole Giannis subplot this offseason, it is fun for Bucs fans that we will always have these on this day to ourselves because of the pandemic, because of the way that it restructured the schedule. No other on this day NBA championship in all likelihood is going to happen in July. All those dates from mid-June through now, these were the only games that have been happening during that time frame in NBA history. So we're always going to have this. July 20th, 2021. I also remember how crazy it was when they went into the broadcast that day and they gave you the drone shot of the Deer District, and it looked like the GA pit. It looked like the general admission at the music festival my wife and I were at. 65,000 people before they even started the game were outside the Deer District. They had a spillover lot where they had a whole second. It looked like Summerfest. I will never forget the beginning of that broadcast, and they have that drone cam sweeping through the amount of people.
Of the NBA Finals, presented by YouTube TV. We are once again back in Milwaukee. This incredible scene where this city, these rabid
it's
fans,
crazy.
They want a night of celebration, a night of crowning a champion. 65,000 expected outside the arena.
As they react then when they see themselves, because they put the live broadcast on the Jumbotron on the screen, it's crazy. I gasped when I was watching that on TV. My wife and I went to Game 4. That was the Giannis block. Now, I thought about that night. I wasn't going to get tickets to go inside the arena because the amount we paid for Game 4 was outrageous. And I know it's a once in a lifetime, but I felt like I had then crossed that off the bucket list. Like there was an NBA Finals game in Milwaukee. I went, I saw them win. I still can't believe that. I was not going to be able to afford going to another multi-$1,000 game, but I did think about maybe getting down there and getting in the mix in the Deer District, but I did not. So I watched at home, but I just remember seeing that overhead shot and thinking, oh my God, it's a sea of humanity. So that was this day in history. And then as we all know, Giannis drops this incredible once-in-a-lifetime performance, 50 points in a closeout game. And it wasn't even just the points. As I was watching some highlights this morning, obviously we're always going to talk about the 50 burger forever and always. And the fact that he made his free throws that night and he had a double-double, he had 10 or 11 rebounds. As I was watching the highlights this morning, I kind of forgot about how big of a defensive game he had. He had 5 blocks in that game. That is a ton of blocks. I think he had 2 steals, too. That is a ton of blocks. I forgot about how big of an impact he had in that game defensively as well. 50 points to level, like 11 or 12 rebounds and 5 blocks. Are you crazy? And then the next morning, we got the iconic moment at Chick-fil-A.
Can I have a 50-piece? Sorry, I will put you. Can I put your camera? Do you mind or no?
Sure.
I love that this woman, who's probably in her early 20s, has absolutely zero idea who is taking Giannis's order, who he is.
There's 150,000 people watching you right now.
Really?
Yes.
Sure there are. 150,000? Sure there are.
So can I have, please, a 50-piece Mac Minis? 50, exactly. Not 51, not 49. Chicken Minis, yes. 50. And let me have a large drink, no ice, half Sprite, half lemonade.
As we said, that kind of became a drink that summer in Milwaukee, too.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And then can I have
Oh, man.
Mariah, and then can I also get some food? Are we done here? Can I get some food, too? So today was the game. That then would have been tomorrow in history, tomorrow morning. And then remember the Bucs fans, he was live on Instagram, and everybody kind of figured out where he was, and all these Bucs fans show up at that Chick-fil-A, and he's shaking hands and letting people touch the trophy. I can't believe they're all gone, guys. I can't believe they're alive. I mean, they're not dead, but I can't believe every vestige of that team, the play-by-play guy, Ted Davis, Giannis, Middleton, every coach, I mean, they're all gone. We all knew, title windows come at you fast. And I think we talked about when they traded Giannis, ultimately it felt like the window was really 2019 through 2022 or 2023. Ultimately that felt like the window, even though we thought the Dame trade would blow it back open, it never really did. So title windows come and go quickly. I don't know that if you asked me 5 years ago on this date, in the euphoria of celebrating a championship, I probably wouldn't have even answered your question. I probably would have told you to bleep off with this question. Why would I want to bring myself down right now? Why would you ask me this now? But if you asked me, let's say you asked me on August 1st of 2021, a week and a half after the title was done, and you told me that every player and every coach would be off this team 5 years later, I think I would have said you're nuts, but here we are. They're all gone. So in that vein, we also had the Giannis, when I was gone on Friday, we had the Giannis introductory press conference. I'm looking at my rundown right now. I forgot we missed the Brewer trade. We missed the Lance McCullers trade. We forgot to talk about that. We can maybe talk about that on Friday. It's not that big of a deal. The Brewers made a trade. They did make a trade. They picked up Lance McCullers Jr. and Colton Gordon from the Astros they traded Prince's kid, Jaden Fielder, who they kind of signed. I mean, it's not like he's been a bad player at rookie ball or single A, but it kind of felt like, you did one of your all-time franchise greats a little bit of favor. Get his kid in there, see if you can develop into something. So they sent Jaden Fielder to the Astros, and they bring back McCullers Jr. and this lefty Colton Gordon. Both of their numbers are not good this year, McCullers Jr. and Colton Gordon, but Lance McCullers has been a big part of that franchise. He made World Series starts in 2017 and 2022, so he has that kind of experience. Maybe get him in the pitching lab, make that pitching lab, whatever they do there, whatever mysteries are happening in there, make that happen and see if they can rejuvenate him. Like we just said, with the potential Freddy trade, you feel like you're going to need arms here. You've got a lot of innings you've got to cover between now and hopefully mid to late October. So you never know. You didn't really give up much, and you got a couple of arms that you might be able to use this year. Anyway, I was just looking at my rundown and saw we forgot about that. But Giannis had his introductory press conference in Miami, and Bobby did too on Friday. And he's up there with Pat Riley. And I have to admit, it did kind of make my stomach grumble a little bit, finally seeing him in the Miami jersey, and he's wearing number 7. They asked him about that. He said, look, 34 has a heritage place now in Milwaukee, and as a respect to my former organization, I'm going to leave my 34 there, and I'm going to wear number 7. I would guess that's just 3 plus 4, right? 3 plus 4 is 7. So he's wearing number 7, but they had all the promo photo shoots and all the videos of him going into the locker room for the first time and meeting Spoelstra and hanging out with Pat Riley and taking his first shots at the practice facility in the Heat jersey. And it did just make me feel, I mean, I knew it was coming. I know we're going to have to get used to it for a few years here, but it just kind of made me feel like, ugh. And if I'm honest, and again, maybe this is hopium, maybe this is me coping. If you're a diehard Bucks fan, and you watched any of that press conference with Giannis in Miami, or you saw any of the pictures they were taking, the promotional photos they took of him in the Miami jersey, if you look into his eyes, the eyes are the groin of the head, as Dwight Schrute once said. The eyes are the window to the soul, right? If you look at his eyes on Friday, during the press conference, during those photo shoots with his Miami Heat jersey on, when he's looking at his Miami Heat jersey for the first time, I detect a little bit of sadness. And maybe that's me just coping with the fact that my favorite player on my favorite NBA team is gone, and it came to an end the way that it did. I think if you look at those eyes on Friday, he looks a little sad. Like, it looks like a little bit like he can't believe that all of this has happened and he's in Miami. You know what it kind of reminds me of? And we've talked about this before. It kind of reminds me of the introductory press conference for Brett Favre when he was with the New York Jets. That is one of my favorite photos. It's not on the level of the Sea League shrug, which we talked about. My favorite sports photo of all time. One of my other favorite pictures ever is when they did that when the Packers traded Favre to the Jets, and they introduced him to the Jets media, and he's sitting there with, what the hell is the guy's name? It's Woody something. No, I keep on wanting to say Woody Allen. It's not Woody Allen. Woody Allen does not own the Jets. Who's the Woody Jets owner? Woody Guthrie? Woody Johnson. So Favre is there with his Favre Jets jersey, holding it up, and Woody Johnson's next to him, and he's holding half the jersey. And Favre has this really forced smile where you can kind of see Favre is like, I can't believe, how did I end up here? How did I end up? Did the Packers actually trade me? Am I unpunked? How did this happen? I was the king of Green Bay. They traded me? He just had that look, that kind of forced smile and a look of disbelief in his eyes. Giannis had a little bit of that. Not to that extent, but he had a little bit of that at the introductory press conference on Friday. Now, they did ask him about the end of the Bucks' tenure.
I feel like there was so much back and forth throughout the season. And maybe I've said this, I think I said this in the past, maybe a few months ago, that all these rumors and reports and that, and maybe I should have, came out and shut it down immediately, which I tried many times, but a lot of people didn't listen. But within the people that I worked with, which are all to have a conversation, I think the conversation was always clear, and we were always on the same page. I think after all this took place, I feel like they're in a good place. Talking about the Bucks, I'm in a good place. I have so much respect for them. I hope they have respect for me and for things that I've done within that city. But, getting the phone call from Mr. Pat, he gave me a lot of closure of okay, now it's a new beginning.
Mr. Pat. I do like how he calls Pat Riley Mr. Pat. But he did talk a little bit about that kind of stuff. I still stand by, and after the interview with Paschke that he posted and the goodbye and all that stuff and some of what he talked about at that press conference, I do still think there's a really good shot that at the end of his career he does end up back with the Bucks somehow. Whether it's for a year or 2 years or whatever, on the back end of his career, I think he does end up in a Bucks jersey at least one more time in his NBA career. And I do think today, now it sounds like LeBron is going to make his decision today. So Pat Riley said during that press conference, they asked him about getting Giannis, and he said at that introductory press conference, we landed one plane, Giannis. Now we've still got to land another. I do think that means LeBron. And we talked about that. I can't remember if it was a week ago or a week and a half ago. Yeah, he's not playing in L.A., and I felt like the three teams, like everybody feels like, the three teams could be the Warriors, where you team up with Steph Curry and you do the Expendables. He goes back to Cleveland with a really good Cavaliers team. He ends his career a third time with Cleveland, but he goes back home for the final contract, a year or two or whatever. Or he goes back to Miami, where maybe he teams up with Giannis, and he's won 2 titles there, and he knows Miami well. It sounds like his decision is coming today, and it does kind of feel like, now maybe it's already happened. Let me just check here to make sure. This is going to happen 20 minutes after we click publish on this podcast. Let's see here. Now, we don't have anything yet. I do think there's a strong chance, like better than a 50% chance, that LeBron ends up in Miami, and we're going to get a LeBron, Bam Adebayo, Giannis trio. What world is this? What multiverse is this? It does sound like LeBron's decision, the decision part 2.0, is coming today, and I think it feels like it does sort of feel like it's Cleveland or Miami to me at this point. I don't know that he ends up in Golden State. I think either you go home for the final 2-year contract, or you go back to a place that was kind of your second home and you won 2 titles, and now they've got Giannis, so you team up with him. I don't know how that works on the floor, like the logistics of LeBron. LeBron's been incredible in his career at adapting and figuring things out around other superstars. And clearly at this point, even though LeBron is super productive, like we talked about on the podcast where we talked about him leaving LA and still averaging 27 points per game at 41 or 42 years old, Giannis is the guy in Miami now. He's the guy. Bam has been there longer, but Giannis is the guy, and LeBron would have to kind of work around that. Now, how do those 3 games, if you're starting LeBron, Giannis, and Bam, I don't know how that looks on the floor, but maybe they'll be able to figure it out. But I do kind of feel like LeBron's going to end up in Miami. But that was news on Friday, the Giannis press conference. The other Bucks news was the NBA is investigating the Gary Trent Jr. contract. We talked about it last Monday. The contract is horrifically bad. It makes no sense on a rebuilding team with young guards who you want to see play. It made 0 sense to sign Gary Trent Jr. to a 4-year, $64 million deal coming off of the worst year of his career where he was benched on a 32-win team. And it was such a bad contract that the NBA agrees, and they're investigating the Bucks for it. I don't think anything's going to come of this. It would be quite something if the Bucks also lost like a second-round pick because of this. They're re-signing their own player. Normally, tampering happens where you are negotiating with somebody on another team in a window where you shouldn't be doing that. That's what tampering is supposed to be. The Bucks are being investigated for negotiating in bad faith, or I guess in bad faith as it relates to the salary cap. They're going to get in trouble for negotiating with their own player. As we talked about on Monday, apparently there was a handshake deal before last year that Gary Trent would take the minimum last year, and then the Bucks would take care of him. I'm sure nobody was expecting he was going to be as bad as he was last year, but that contract looks terrible. And you look at all the free agent contracts in the NBA this offseason, giving a guy who averaged 8 points per game on 38% shooting a $64 million fully guaranteed deal. I just thought it was hilarious that the NBA is going to investigate the Bucks for signing their own guy. Like, that's how bad the contract is. I'm sure Gary Trent Jr. does not care because at the end of the day, he's got a $64 million contract, so who cares? But it has got to be quite something where you re-sign with a team and the NBA goes, whoa, this guy's not worth that kind of money. Even if as the organization that had him, you prioritize him for some reason. Maybe he's a good locker room guy. Maybe he's a good leader or works well with the coaching staff or whatever. That has got to be quite something if you're Gary Trent Jr., that the contract you just signed was so abhorrent that the NBA said, we have to investigate the team that you were playing with and that you are still playing with after that contract. It's crazy. So that was news. And then Braden Burries did wrap up NBA Summer League with a walk-off winner. This kid had an incredible Summer League. Now, look, it's Summer League. You're playing a lot of rookies. You're playing a lot of undrafted free agents. Teams are just trying to fill out rosters in the Summer League. Braden Burries of a loaded draft class, and we talked about heading into this draft. This draft was loaded. They got Burries with the 10th overall pick, Nate Ament with the 13th overall pick. As we talked about after the draft, it feels like Burries is more of a lock right now to be a productive NBA player, but Ament has a bit more of a high side because he's taller, he's more athletic. He does kind of have, and we're not comparing him to Giannis, but he has a lot of that raw athleticism that Giannis had when he was drafted in 2013. So you picked in Braden Burries, it felt like you picked a high floor, lower ceiling. And in Ament, you picked a high ceiling and potentially a floor so low that he could be out of the NBA maybe in 2 or 3 years, and maybe he doesn't even play in an NBA game. So that's what we're talking about when we say low floor, high ceiling with Nate Ament. But Braden Burries, of all of these great draft picks in the Summer League, he was the best. He had the best summer of all of them. And it is kind of crazy when you look at Braden Burries' game, just the way he operates in Summer League. And again, how is that going to look in an NBA regular season game or an NBA playoff game down the road? You know, is he going to be able to do that kind of stuff against high-level defenders, against a starting caliber guard in the NBA? We'll find out in a couple of months. But it is interesting. It kind of feels like if Giannis just would have hung on, if he just would have hung on for the summer to kind of see how things play out, it does feel to me like the game, the type of game that Braden Burries plays, that floor game, he can knock down shots, he can get to the rim, he's a great pick-and-roll guy. It feels like that combo, that Giannis-Burries combo would have been good. And it would be quite something if Giannis doesn't do anything in Miami and they never win a title and just never kind of comes together there. And Braden Burries takes off as a potential rookie of the year and he has a great year in Milwaukee and it kind of starts a new era for the Bucks. It would be something if you look back on this 4 or 5 years down the road and say, man, if Giannis just would have hung out, if he just would have hung out for an extra 2 months just to see what Burries would look like, because they had that pick anyway. The Ament pick was the pick they got from Miami. The Burries pick was their pick. They had the 10th overall pick, so they always had that. It would be interesting if, you get a year or two down the road here and Burries turns into a really good NBA guard, and meanwhile Giannis could be spinning his wheels in Miami with an aging LeBron. And he might look back at that and say, man, if I just would have waited a year to see what this guy would develop into, we would have had a great 1-2 punch between Burries and Giannis. But Burries was tremendous in Summer League. We'll see how that translates now when we get to training camp in about a month and a half. All right, that'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. We'll get back after it on Friday. We'll recap the Brewer week, get set for the Rockies series. We'll talk about Ms. Freddy. Maybe anything comes out of that Freddy situation. We are, 2 weeks away now from the trade deadline? I think it's next Monday, the 3rd. And we will do a mailbag episode, by the way, next week. We're going to do a mailbag next week. But we'll be getting closer to the deadline. We'll talk about any rumors there on Friday. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.